Welcome back to the channel. It's been a while since I've done anything, and I thought this is something that was really daunting when I first started it. It was the changing of the body mounts at the rear. And I thought, oh, am I going to have to take the motor out and the gearbox? Well, I don't. And I didn't, and I got it done. And it's a fairly simple sort of a job. It actually looks more complicated than it is. Bearing that in mind, I have this car pulled down. So, you know, you'd have to take a bit of the interior out to get to the bolts. But what I've done, it actually took me about half an hour to change the bolts over once everything was set up. The rubbers over. It's not that hard. So I've propped the body up I've propped the motor up and the subframe and gearbox in 7 different spots, so it just couldn't move. And it worked a treat. So what I did, if you have a look underneath here, you can see all the points in which I made a jig at the back of the motor for putting the motor in that goes on my trolley jack, and that's actually holding the motor up. I'll go around this way. Right, so that's holding the motor up. And I put a trolley jack and some blocks under the gearbox, and then some on the subframe, 4 stands on the subframe. Yeah, and I'll just go around so you can actually see what I've done. Sorry, there's a bit of glare there from the sun, but that's what I did. So let me see if I can set this up so you can get a good long view of it. So there's the props there. So I've had 7 points. I don't think I could have done much more. And the whole body's off the ground by about 1 foot or 30 centimetres. Close enough to. So that's how I got it that far. I set it up as such. Then all I did, when all the bolts were undone, which are there, in there, forget the rust, I'll fix that up, in there. And the third one, in there. And obviously this centre one, that's actually got rubber mounts either side of it, the centre piece. So they're 13mm and everything else is 17. You can't get this plate off unless you take the centre bolt, which is 17mm also. It holds the centre of the subframe up. So, saying that, I'll go back out here. Then, all I did was grab my trolley jack, put it under the jack point, and jacked it up 3 inches. The whole rear end of the car didn't not move. The motor trans, it all stayed on those props that I showed you, and the body just pulled away. When the body pulled away, that's your top one inside the big hole I showed you, and that sits like that and that. There's the old ones. And the lower ones, the top of the lower one goes, this one here is probably the hardest one to get out. You just need a screwdriver to flick it out. And this one just comes off with the big washer on the back side. And look, there's probably life in them, but they were fairly squashed. This side, the passenger side was worse than the driver's side, so they come up pretty well. I bought the kit from ISP West, and that's not a free plug, that's just where I got them from, which was good. So they came out. That's your bottom kit, that's your top kit, and that third bolt hole up the top here is just, it holds the bottom one in from the top. So this one has a bolt from the bottom and a bolt from the top. It took me around, once I had it all set, it took me about half an hour to replace everything. It's really simple. when the wheel comes down from here, you can actually get the bottom of this one that goes in here. You can't really see what I'm pointing to, can you? This one, which is the lower half of the top one, can be done through here. It's just, with all this stuff, just be safe. I've just got this whole car up off the ground. So look, it's not that hard. If anybody's got any questions, I'm happy to help you out with any answers, because it really wasn't that difficult. I made sure I cleaned up all my bolts. I wire wheeled them. I put penetrating oil, let them soak for a little while. And that was all good. So now I have a motor that is balanced in the car. So you can see that I had it fairly well propped. It didn't move much. I'm just trying to think of some of the other questions that you might have had along the way. With anything, I jack the body up really slowly, just one pulse at a time, slow. There's a couple of creaks, but I sort of expected that anyway. What else can I tell you? There's nothing really else. That just take it slow. I actually, before I took all the bolts out that mount the subframe in, for about 3 or 4 days before, I just soaked them in penetrating lube. Every time I come to the shed, I just give them a spray, walk away, come back the next day, give them and they came out really easily. And this car was a little bit rusty in the back end, so they did come out quite easily. Yeah, so there's not much else I can tell you, I don't think, that I've done. It's all pretty self-explanatory. You've got to undo the shift coupler, and probably the brake lines on this didn't need, they just came away and they were fine. There was no tears, rips. I kept an eye on them. They didn't stretch, didn't break. And you might want to take off, I didn't, but some do, the earth strap. My earth strap didn't sag that much, but do one side at a time. So what you do, you leave one side bolted up, undo the center bracket, and undo the side you're working on. Drop it down, bolt it back up, come around, leave the center unbolted, and do the other side. Don't try and do it all at once, because it probably you might have a problem matching up the bolt holes again. So whatever you do, one side first. So that's about it. I mean, the rubbers, this one here was pretty squashed flat. You can see there's not much left on that one. And you can see where the old body's been eating into or biting down into the rubber there. It's a little bit, there's a big groove in there. So yeah, that's about it, guys. So look, I hope this has been helpful. Take your time, and you'll get it done. So we'll catch you next time. See you later. Bye.